Hi, my name is Emily Turpak, and I am a realtor in the greater Philadelphia area. This means that I cover all of Philadelphia County and the surrounding suburbs in both Pennsylvania and South Jersey. If you're moving to Philadelphia and you own a car, then parking is going to be one of the very first things that you have to figure out. And it looks completely different depending on which neighborhood you land in. Some areas in the city tend to have homes with private parking. So that could be a driveway, a garage, a shared parking lot if it's sort of within a development. But for all other homes, street parking is going to genuinely become a part of your daily routine. In this video, I'm breaking down how parking actually works in Philadelphia. So that's metered parking, residential permits, and what they cost. Also, which neighborhoods tend to have the most private parking, and I'm also going to highlight one specific South Philly neighborhood that has a parking hack that most people don't even know about. So let's get into it. We're going to start with metered parking because it's what most visitors and a lot of residents interact with regularly, especially in Center City and commercial corridors. In high demand areas, so think Center City, Rittenhouse, Old City, metered parking generally runs between $3.50 and $4 an hour, and that rate can be lower in areas with less demand, but the trade-off is that metered spots almost always come with time restriction limits, and they're really designed for kind of quick errands or maybe a dinner out, not parking all day. So if you're commuting into Center City for work, metered parking isn't a realistic option. This type of parking is really built around turnover, not long-term use. Next is residential parking permits. And this is where it gets more relevant if you're actually moving here and plan to park on the street regularly. And so the residential parking permit program is run by the Philadelphia Parking Authority. This means if you live on a block posted for residential parking permit, you can apply for a permit that exempts you from the posted time limits or any meter fees in your specific area. Take this parking sign as an example, okay? Someone who is just visiting and needs to park here temporarily can do so for up to 2 hours. But if you live in the area and have a Zone 4 parking permit that's listed on the sign, you can actually park here indefinitely. Okay, that means overnight, all day during the day, days or weeks at a time, you are absolutely free to park here. And the zones themselves are actually pretty big. In fact, here is a map that outlines each zone. I'm also going to include a link to the map in the description below. But some of these zones are 14 blocks wide and 10 blocks deep, and others are even much larger than that. As of right now, a residential permit costs $75 per vehicle per year, and each household is limited to 3 vehicle permits. Now, motorcycles and scooters are priced separately at $50 a year and don't count towards that 3 vehicle household limit. In order to obtain the permit, you just need to prove residency in the area, and that can be by showing a vehicle registration with your address. I just want to highlight again that your permit only works within your specific permit district and only on blocks that are actually posted for residential parking in that zone. So it's not a citywide pass, okay? So if you're new to the city, don't assume a permit from one neighborhood carries over to another. That's why learning your parking, zone boundaries with that map is going to be super helpful. This program has actually changed a fair amount in recent years. Permit costs used to be on a sliding scale based on, how many vehicles a household had, and the city moved it now to a flat $75 rate to make the system simpler and to help free up crowded blocks. So if you are watching this later on, it's probably worth double checking, current pricing since it has shifted before and could shift again in the future. Next is private parking. So if street parking and permits aren't appealing, then private parking is another major option. Monthly parking in a garage typically runs, I would say, anywhere between $250 a month in kind of more of those residential neighborhoods, up to $500 a month in Center City. And that's just supply and demand. Parking is more difficult in Center City, so they're going to charge a premium for that. But the easier parking is in your area, the less a rented spot is going to cost. Now, here's something worth understanding if you're comparing buying a home with parking, okay, versus renting a spot separately. Either way, you're paying for parking, okay, meaning you'll either be paying for a rented spot monthly or you'll be paying a higher purchase price on a home that has parking included, which in turn means your mortgage payment, okay, will be a little bit higher than a house that doesn't come with parking. Now, a house with parking might cost you an extra $50,000, which would increase your mortgage payment by about $250 to $300 a month. Exactly what it would cost to rent a spot probably in that area. But at least if you buy a house with parking, you're building equity, okay, as you pay your mortgage off each month. Whereas if you rent a spot, you'll never own it. So if parking is a priority, it's often smarter to factor that directly into your home search, which means prioritizing a property with a driveway or garage rather than treating it as a separate ongoing expense after you move in. So now the question is, which neighborhoods actually have the most amount of homes with their own parking? And it really comes down to when and how a neighborhood was developed. For instance, Northeast Philadelphia, okay, it has the highest concentration of homes with private garages and driveway parking in the entire city, but that's because much of the Northeast was developed during post-World War II, which is the suburban boom, and when car ownership really became standard and homes were built with wider lots and integrated garages from the start. Very different from the tightly packed, row home blocks laid out a century earlier in, say, South Philly or Fishtown. And just like Northeast Philadelphia, you'll see that same pattern in Northwest Philadelphia. So that would be Roxborough, Mount Airy, and Chestnut Hill. All of those are known for wider streets and a lot of them have driveways or twin homes with driveways. So that's a real difference from the attached row homes that you'll see dominate closer to Center City. Outside of the Northeast and Northwest neighborhoods of Philadelphia, the areas of the city that have the most homes with private parking are Fishtown, Old Kensington, Northern Liberties, and Graduate Hospital. Now, one of the biggest reasons why homes with parking are more prevalent in these neighborhoods is because of how much new or newer construction has been built over the years. That's when you'll see houses like this, with either a garage on the first floor facing out to the street or a new construction development that actually has a driveway that runs behind the houses where each person can then pull into their own garage. Now, just to note, developments like those with the driveway in the back tend to have a monthly HOA fee to cover the maintenance of the driveway or if there is a parking gate that has to lift up before you get into the driveway. Now let's detour really quick because I want to highlight one neighborhood specifically because it has a parking situation that's genuinely unique to the city, and that's Pennsport. So Pennsport is a tight-knit residential neighborhood in South Philly, and it stretches from the Delaware River to around 4th Street and then between Washington Ave and Snyder Ave. It's mostly row homes, but here's the part that surprises a lot of people. There's a stretch of free parking directly underneath I-95 along Front Street. And because it sits in the shadow of the highway overpass, that space has essentially become an informal free parking lot for residents, something that you just don't find in any other part of the city where street parking is either metered, permitted, or simply scarce. So if you desperately want readily available parking in Philly, but you don't want to spend more for a house with parking, or you'd rather avoid paying for a rented spot, then definitely check out Pennsport and simply live near free parking.